He didn't wear a uniform. He didn't fire a gun. He didn't build gas chambers or drop bombs, but he murdered more people than Hitler. And you've probably never even heard his name. Leopold II, King of the Belgians, turned an entire African nation into his personal slaughterhouse. This isn't colonization. This isn't war.
This is something darker. A business empire soaked in blood.
Built entirely on deception, forced labor, and dismemberment. This is the story of the Congo Free State, the most profitable hell on earth. Leopold II was born into royalty, but he wasn't respected. He was petty, jealous, and desperate to leave a legacy bigger than Belgium itself. And since his country was too small to matter, he set his sights elsewhere. He wanted what the British had, what the French, the Dutch, and the Spanish had. Colonies, gold, power, a place where no one could stop him.
And in Africa, he found it.
In the 1880s, as European powers gathered at the Berlin Conference to carve up the continent, Leopold showed up pretending to be something else.
He didn't come as a conqueror.
He came as a philanthropist. He called it a free state, a humanitarian mission. A place where Africans would be protected from the evils of slavery and taught the ways of Western civilization. He even promised to open trade routes and abolish Arab slave trafficking. It was all a lie.
A front. A mask?
Because behind the scenes, Leopold was already organizing what would become the most brutal resource extraction machine in modern history. He didn't just control the Congo, he owned it. Personally, every river, every tree, every human being inside its borders. His agents set up trading stations, outposts, and military garrisons across the jungle. But they weren't trading.
They were collecting rubber.
The demand was skyrocketing across Europe and America. Tires, hoses, belts, electricity insulation. The world wanted rubber, and Leopold had the largest untapped source on the planet. But extracting wild rubber from the dense Congolese forest wasn't easy. It took time, labor, bodies, and Leopold didn't want to pay anyone, so he enslaved them.
Village after village was forced into quotas.
Every man had to bring in a set amount of rubber sap, measured in kilos. If they failed, punishment followed. The soldiers came with whips, guns, and fire.
Men were executed.
Women were kidnapped. Children were mutilated. Hands became currency. The Force Publique, Leopold's private army, was instructed to account for every bullet they used. One bullet to one body. And the only proof of a body was a severed hand. But ammunition was expensive. Mistakes were made. So they began cutting off hands, even when no one had been shot.
Living victims, innocent children, old women, it didn't matter.
Hands were easier to deliver than corpses. Rubber quotas increased, violence escalated.
Villages were burned to the ground.
Entire ethnic groups were wiped out. The jungle became a graveyard of ghosts, and through it all, Leopold sat comfortably in Belgium, thousands of miles away, raking in obscene profits. At one point, over half of the entire Congo Free State's annual budget went directly into his personal account. He never once set foot in the Congo.
Never saw the people who were dying for his wealth.
But he knew what was happening. He designed the system. Leopold II was not an absent king. He was a meticulous architect of death. Reports from the time are stomach-churning. Witnesses described infants impaled on spears, women raped in front of their husbands, men with their genitals cut off for amusement. Entire villages were forced to watch as their leaders were tortured to death, burned alive, flayed, mutilated, just to send a message. And the message was clear: produce,
obey,
or suffer. The Congo Free State was roughly the size of Western Europe, yet it was ruled by a single monarch and a handful of loyal enforcers.
How?
Through fear, through isolation, and through silence. For years, the world looked the other way. The other colonial powers had their own atrocities to worry about. And Leopold was clever. He funded schools and churches back in Europe. He paid journalists. He built public monuments. He positioned himself as a benevolent ruler, a man of vision and compassion. But eventually the truth began to leak out.
Missionaries,
Traders,
runaway soldiers, photographs. Yes, photos.
Some of the earliest examples of photojournalism captured the horror of Leopold's regime. One image in particular, a father staring at the severed hand and foot of his 5-year-old daughter, punished for her village's failure to meet rubber quotas, shocked the world. British shipping clerk E.D. Morel noticed that ships leaving Belgium for the Congo were packed with guns and chains, and the ships coming back were full of ivory and rubber. He realized there was no commerce,
Only plunder.
he launched a crusade. He founded the Congo Reform Association. He partnered with Irish diplomat Roger Casement, who had traveled to the Congo and documented the horrors firsthand. Casement's report was undeniable. It named names, it quoted victims, it catalogued crimes. Public pressure mounted. Newspapers ran exposé. Writers like Mark Twain and Arthur Conan Doyle spoke out. Leopold panicked. He ordered the destruction of documents. He paid publicists. He built a lavish palace and renamed it a museum, all in a last-ditch attempt to bury the truth. But it didn't work. In 1908, under immense international pressure, Leopold was forced to hand the Congo over to the Belgian government. It was no utopia after that, but the reign of the Butcher King had finally ended. By then, it's estimated that between 10 and 15 million Congolese had died.
From violence.
From starvation.
From disease.
From sheer exhaustion. Their names are lost. Their stories were never written. They left no monuments. But their blood is the foundation of Leopold's legacy. Today, statues of Leopold still stand in parts of Belgium.
Streets still bear his name.
Some Belgians still call him a visionary. Textbooks call it colonialism. But make no mistake, this was a genocide. Leopold wasn't a king. He was a cartel boss, a slaver in a crown, a smiling executioner in silk gloves. He didn't kill with his own hands. He didn't need to. He built a machine and let it run.
And we let him.
For decades, the Congo was a black hole, where Western wealth was extracted and African lives were discarded. And it's not ancient history. This ended just over a century ago. Your great-grandparents were alive when it happened. The echoes of Leopold's reign still ring in the region today. Political instability, economic exploitation, foreign interference, the ripple effects of trauma that never healed. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was profit by torture.
Business by massacre.
When people talk about monsters in history, they mention Hitler, Stalin, Pol Pot. But the man who orchestrated one of the deadliest atrocities in modern history did it in silence, without war, without resistance, without ever stepping on African soil. His name was Leopold II.